Seussical is a musical by Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty based on the books of Dr. Seuss that debuted on Broadway in 2000. The play's story is a rather complex amalgamation of many of Seuss's most famous books. After a Broadway run, the production spawned 2 U.S. national tours and a U.K. tour. It has become a loved classic for schools, communities and regional theaters. Productions pre-Broadway in a reading in New York City, Eric Idle played the Cat in the Hat, and was credited at the time for contributions to the storyline. In the Toronto workshop in 1999, coordinated by Livent Incorporated, Andrea Martin played the Cat in the Hat. The musical had its out-of-town tryout in Boston, Massachusetts at the Colonial Theatre in September 2000. Broadway Seussical opened on Broadway at the Richard Rodgers Theatre on November 30, 2000. Directed by Frank Galati with choreography by Kathleen Marshall. Though uncredited, Kathleen Marshall's brother Rob Marshall was hired to direct the show when it returned from Boston to Broadway. The original Broadway cast included David Schuyler as the Cat in the Hat, Kevin Chamberlin as Horton, and Javier Albisher as Hepburn as JoJo. It also featured Janine Laumana as Gertrude McFuzz and Michelle Pork as Maisie Larbird, with Stuart Zagnut as the Mayor of Werville, Alice Playton as the Mayor's wife, Sharon Wilkins as the Sour Kangaroo and Eric Devine as General Genghis Khan Schmitz also appearing. Throughout the run, there were many celebrity Cat in the Hat replacements, including Rosie O'Donnell and Kathy Rigby. The production received lukewarm reviews, with critics focusing on the huge cast of characters and unsympathetic plotlines. The Broadway production closed on May 20, 2001 after 198 performances and 34 previews. United States tours Following the Broadway production, there were 2 U.S. national tours. The first, in 2002 '03, starred Kathy Rigby, and the second toured in 2003 '04. The script for the first tour was extensively reworked after the poor showing on Broadway. This resulted in the removal or reworking of several songs. The biggest change involves JoJo, who is initially an anonymous boy who thinks up the Cat in the Hat when he finds a strange hat at center stage. The cat helps the boy create the Seussian universe and the rest of the story. The cat later shoves the boy into the story, making him play the role of JoJo. There is also additional dialogue, as well as the deletion of some songs and their reprises. It is this version of the musical that is currently rented by the leasing company, and has enjoyed some success in regional and children's theatre companies. Off-Broadway A 90-minute off-Broadway production was staged at the Lucille Lortel Theatre from July 19, 2007 through August 17, 2007 by Theatriworks USA. Directed and choreographed by Marcia Milgram Dodge and starring Shori Walker as the Cat in the Hat. This production was downscaled for the national tour, which took its final bow in spring 2014. The 14th national tour closing cast included Tommy McKernan, Jeremiah Haley, April Lively, Josh Boscarino, Ashley Stultz, Shahnette Beatty, Ray Lederman, Emma Wagner, Sammy Lopez, Brody Khan, Corey Loftus and Greg Lorsula. West End, London Seussical opened on the West End at the Arts Theatre on December 4, 2012, by Salvador Theatre Company based in Greenwich, London. Produced by David Hutchinson and Philip Rowntree and directed by Philip Rowntree, designed by Richard Evans, lighting by Alexander Ridgers with choreography by Cressida Cara. It has been announced that Seussical will once again return to the Arts Theatre in the Christmas of 2013, once again produced by Salvador Theatre Company. One-act versions In 2004, with the permission of the playwrights, Jeff Church, artistic director of the Coterie Theatre in Kansas City, reworked Seussical and premiered the Theatre for Young America version. The TYA version contains significant changes, including reducing the cast to 12 actors and focusing the action of the plot on Horton. Ahrens, Lynn with Flaherty, Stephen. The Rise and Fall and Rise of Seussical. American Theatre October 2005, another one-act version of the show, Seussical the Musical, JR is designed for performances by junior high or middle school students, and part of the MTIJR series. The junior version of Seussical was changed from the full-length Broadway version to make it shorter, in one act, and more accessible for younger actors. Contributing Dr. Seuss books, the overarching plot of the show mirrors that of Horton Hears a Who. Centering on Horton the elephant's endeavors to protect the people of Whoville, who live on a tiny speck of dust. It also features characters and scenarios from many other Seuss books, including the Butter Side-Uppers Downers from the Butter Battle book, Gertrude McFuzz, and, in addition to a music number based on its original story, The Cat in the Hat also acts as your host and MC, acting variously as a narrator, an outside observer, and a devil's advocate throughout the show, and briefly leaping into the action on several occasions to create conflict and keep the story moving. In all, the following Seuss books have some minor characters and/or settings incorporated into the show, due to the elimination of songs such as The Military, Having a Hunch, and Message from the Front, and phrases and sections of other songs. Seussical, J.R. only uses the books, Horton Hears a Who. Did I ever tell you how lucky you are? One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, The Cat in the Hat, If I Ran the Circus, May Seligert's Pool, Green Eggs and Ham, Yartle the Turtle and Other Stories, Horton Hatches the Egg, I Had Trouble in Getting to Solus Solue, Oh, The Things You Can Think. More info on the cut songs are below. Plot: this synopsis describes the off-Broadway version. Act I. The story begins with a bare stage, save for an odd red and white striped hat. A small boy discovers it and imagines what it could belong to, finally conjuring up the cat in the hat. The cat creates the Seussian world around him and the boy, and he acts as the narrator for the remainder of the musical, and is the boy's mentor during the play. The cat also plays some of the minor roles. At the cat's encouragement, the boy thinks up the jungle of Newell, where Horton the elephant is bathing. Horton hears a strange noise coming from a speck of dust, and decides there must be someone on it. He rescues the speck and places it on a clover and decides to guard it. Led by the at first villain Sour Kangaroo, the other animals in the jungle mock him mercilessly, except for Gertrude McFuzz, Horton's next-door neighbor, who admires his compassion and begins to fall in love with him. Horton soon discovers the dust speck is in fact a planet covered with microscopic people called Whos. They introduce themselves and their community and explain their predicament. In addition to being unable to control where their dust speck flies, they are on the brink of war and all of their beautiful truffula trees have been cut down. Horton's resolve to guard the dust speck is strengthened. At this point, the Cat in the Hat abruptly pushes the boy from the beginning into the story. He becomes Jojo, the son of the mayor of Whoville. No sooner does he enter than he is roughly scolded by his parents. He has inadvertently been causing trouble at school by thinking, disrupting the class and horrifying the teachers. Jojo is sent to take a bath and go to bed and thinks abnormal things instead. Jojo blames the cat for getting him in trouble and asks him to leave. The cat replies with "Ok, but first let me sing." The cat starts singing "Oh, the things you can think," but Jojo tries to tune out the cat by saying "I can't hear you." The cat soon persuades him to have a think in the tub by explaining the things that you can do if you think. Jojo imagines the tub is May Seligert's pool, distracting himself and accidentally flooding the mayor's living room. The mayor and his wife wonder what they should do about their son. After receiving a brochure from the cat, they decide to send him to military school, under the supervision and persuasion of General Genghis Khan Schmitz, who is preparing to go to war with those who eat their bread butter side down. Meanwhile, Horton has been guarding the clover for over a week, getting ridiculed by the citizens of the jungle. He then thinks about how no matter what others may say or do, he still has his dreams for adventure and a friend. He decides to chat with the Whos, and Jojo responds. They chat and discover they have found a friend in one another. Jojo goes to sleep, only to be woken up by the Cat in the Hat. The cat asks him what should happen next, and Jojo decides to focus on Gertrude. Her feelings for Horton are stronger than ever, but she fears he doesn't notice her because her tail consists only of one droopy feather. At the advice of Maisie Larbird, whose tail is enormous and dazzling, Gertrude goes to Dr. Dake by the lake, who prescribes her pills to make her tail grow. Gertrude is so excited by the dramatic and immediate results of the pills that she overdoses, causing her tail to grow to a ridiculous length. Horton is ambushed by a group of ne'er-do-well monkeys called the Wickersham brothers who steal the clover and run off with it. Horton gives chase, until the monkeys give the clover to a black-bottomed eagle named Vladikov. Horton continues to chase the clover, until Vladikov drops it into a large patch of identical clovers, 100 miles wide. The Cat in the Hat abruptly freezes the action and delivers an ironically cheery tune to the audience. Horton begins to look for the clover, hoping that the Who's are still alive, when Gertrude, who has followed Horton all this distance, catches up with him. Her tail is now gorgeous, if impractically large. She tries to catch his attention, but he is too busy looking for the Who's to notice her. She retreats to take more pills while he continues searching. After searching 2,999,999 clovers, Horton loses hope, and he sees Maisie La bird high in a nest. Apparently, she was in Fort Worth, when she met a nightingale named Tweet McFirth. After 3 weeks of bliss, Tweet left her with an egg. Maisie then persuades Horton to give up on the search for the Who's and sit on her egg while she goes off for a vacation. Horton reluctantly agrees, and Maisie flies off. Horton waits on the egg for months, bearing harsh weather conditions and having to decide whether to keep Maisie's promise or find the Who's. Horton sits on the egg. Horton is captured by hunters. Gertrude tries to save Horton, but the size and weight of her new tail does not allow her to fly. The Cat in the Hat, backed by the full company, sings another reprise of How Lucky You Are to finish off Act I. Act 2. At the top of the act, Horton is transported to New York City and auctioned off to the Circus McGurkus. After going on the road and sitting on the egg for 51 weeks, sitting here while people have paid to take peeks, Horton meets up with Maisie again, and tries to give the egg back to her. She selfishly insists that he keep it as a rather dubious gift, wishes him a sarcastic good luck when it hatches, and leaves. Horton, betrayed and alone, sorrowfully remembers how no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't save the Who's, or poor Jojo. Realizing that the egg also is alone without its mother, and he is the only one who can help it. With a brave determination, declares that he'll do better than try, and protect the little egg with everything he has. Then he sings the egg a lullaby about a magical world called Solar Solue. At the same time, Jojo, the mayor, and the mayor's wife, lost in the clover field, reflect on recent events, wishing they could all be in Solar Solue as well. The Battle of Butter finally commences. Jojo rebels against General Schmitz and abandons the army. He hands in his sword and hat and unwittingly runs out onto a minefield, vanishing in an explosion. The general assumes that Jojo died in the explosion, and heads back to Werville to deliver the sad news to his family. The Cat reveals to the audience that Jojo did, in fact, survive, but Jojo quickly discovers that he's lost, and doesn't know where to turn. After being confronted by the Cat and the Hunches, Jojo finds his way home by the power of his thinks. Meanwhile, Gertrude sneaks into the circus where Horton is kept at night and frees him. She explains the troubles she went through to reach him, including getting all but one of her tail feathers plucked out to allow her to fly, and finally confesses her love for him. What's more, she found Horton's clover, as well. Horton is delighted to find the Who's alive and well, but the happy ending has not arrived yet. The evil sour kangaroo suddenly appears and with the Wickersham brothers, kidnaps Horton. Horton is dragged back to the jungle of Newell and put on trial for talking to a speck, disturbing the peace, and loitering on an egg. The Cat plays the bailiff, and Judge Yartle the Turtle presides over the case. Gertrude and Horton make a stand at the case, but the verdict is obvious from the beginning. Horton is remanded to the Newell Asylum for the criminally insane, and the clover is to be boiled in a kettle of hazelnut oil. Horton, aghast, encourages the Who's to make as much noise as they can, to prove they exist. Their efforts initially seem futile, until Jojo comes up with a new word, YOPP, his shouting of which reverberates throughout the world and finally makes the Who's heard. The court acquits Horton, and the sour kangaroo ends her wicked ways and decides to do her part in protecting the clover. On Who, Jojo is celebrated for his achievement, to be honored as thinker non-stop. Suddenly, the egg hatches. To everyone's surprise, a tiny flying elephant bird comes out. Horton panics, realizing he can't handle flying progeny, and asks Gertrude what he should do. She responds, "I have wings, yes I can fly. You teach him earth, and I will teach him sky." They agree to raise the child together. The Cat in the Hat appears one final time to sum things up. The scene dissolves, leaving only Jojo, now just a boy again, and the strange hat from the top of show. The boy walks up to the hat, and pulls it over his head and says Seuss. Blackout. The curtain call is accompanied by a final number set to a verse of Green Eggs and Ham. Songs, equals lyrics by Lynn Ahrens and Dr. Seuss equals not present in current revision of play, equals not on cast recording. Songs in Seussical Jr. Instrumentation, the licensed orchestration for Seussical stays true to the original Broadway production 17 musicians. The instrumentation calls for 2 keyboards, bass guitar, 2 guitars, drums, percussion, 3 woodwind players, 2 trumpets, trombone, 2 violins, viola, and cello. Both guitarists are called to play both acoustic and electric guitars, and the second part doubles on banjo. The first woodwind part doubles on piccolo, flute, clarinet, and soprano and alto sax. The second part doubles on oboe, clarinet, bass clarinet, and tenor sax. The third part doubles on flute, clarinet, bassoon, and baritone sax. Characters equals major characters equals the Cat in the Hat the main character who is the mischievous, imaginative, comedic narrator of the show. The cat acts as a mentor to Jojo throughout the play. The cat also plays several other characters in the story, including the bailiff in The People vs. Horton the Elephant, Mr. McGurkus, Jose the pool boy in Maisie in Palm Beach, Dr. Dake in Amazing Gertrude, a piano player imitating Louis Armstrong, an auctioneer, and others. Some productions have the cat also play Yartle the Turtle, played Vladikoff, and in JR Productions, The Grinch. The cat often breaks the fourth wall for comedic effect. The script allows for the cat to be played by either a girl or a boy, with only minor script changes which are detailed in the back of librettos. David Shiner originated the role. Horton the Elephant while the cat gets top billing, Horton is the heart and soul of Seussical. He is described as a thinker and an outsider, almost a blue-collar worker. He tries to protect the Who's and care for the egg Maisie leaves behind even though the animals think he is crazy. He and Gertrude become the parents of the elephant bird. Kevin Chamberlain originated the role. The boy Jojo a thinker, the child of the mayor and Mrs. Mayor, gets into trouble for thinking. He and Horton bond over the fact that they are outcasts because of what they do. He is appreciated in the end. Originally played by Anthony Blair Hall and Andrew Keenan Bolger. Gertrude McFuzz the loyal bird neighbor of Horton, she loves him but is shy due to having only one feather for a tail. She has major insecurities about her tail and seeks help from Maisie La Bird because she has a tail Gertrude envies. Gertrude changes throughout the show from being nervous and self-aware of her imperfect tail to focusing instead on accepting who she is and caring for the baby elephant bird. Horton eventually falls for her and she becomes the adoptive mother of the elephant bird in the end. Maisie La Bird a vivacious, self-centered, selfish and vain bird who tells Gertrude to take pills so her tail will grow longer. Maisie never admits her flaws and is manipulative with Horton so that she can escape her responsibilities. She is the mother of the elephant bird Horton and Gertrude adopt but she abandons him and goes to Palm Beach. Sour Kangaroo a rude kangaroo who teases Horton and calls him the biggest blame fool in the jungle of Newell, because he tries to protect the Who's. Later, she gets him arrested and put on trial because of protecting the Who's and caring for Maisie's egg after she deserts it. At the end of the show, she realizes that the Who's are real. She offers Horton to help care for them. Supporting characters the mayor of the Who's, Jojo's father. Mrs. Mayor, the mayor's wife, Jojo's mother. General Genghis Khan Schmitz the general of the Who's military. He leads JoJo to war against the Butterside-Downers. He is removed in the JR version of the play. The Wickersham brothers are 3 mischievous monkeys who steal Horton's clover from him. They work as henchmen for the sour kangaroo. The young kangaroo The young kangaroo can be played by a puppet attached to the sour kangaroo's costume or a person. Does everything sour kangaroo does. The bird girls are a type of Greek chorus who are Maisie's friends. They act as the narrators when the Cat in the Hat is not around. The Grinch is a notable member of Whoville, known for organizing their Christmas pageant. Yartle the turtle is the judge of the jungle, appearing at the beginning of the show and in People vs. Horton the elephant, played Vadakoff, a cameo role. He is hired by the sour kangaroo to steal Horton's clover. Due to his cameo role, he may also be in the ensemble. The hunters, they hunt and capture Horton. They take him to New York City and auction him to the man from the circus. The hunters usually go up to 2 to 6 hunters. Ensemble characters The Who's, citizens of Whoville, idealistic citizens of a Pleasantville-type town. Also included in this category are the cadets, boys in Schmitz's military. The jungle creatures, flexible movers who appear as dancers and singers in jungle scenes. Hunches, these are representations of JoJo's thoughts, and are controlled by the Cat in the Hat. Circus performers, acts in the Circus McGurkus. Clowns, animals, gymnasts, they sing backup in Sola Solue. Fish, they are JoJo's Thinks in It's Possible. They sing backup for It's Possible Too. Characters played by the Cat in the Hat the bailiff Mr. McGurkus, Jose the pool boy, Dr. Dake, Louis Armstrong piano player. The Lorax sequence an extensive 10-minute sequence adapting the Lorax was seen in the original script for Seussical. It faced numerous difficulties due to the already lengthy running time of the show, being cut to 5 minutes before being replaced with a reprise of Sola Solue before being removed entirely after its Boston tryout. Lorax-themed lyrics were added to the end of Here on Who as a replacement, though these lyrics would later be cut from the JR version. This sequence being cut also seems to explain why the second act is substantially shorter than the first. While much of Seussical was an amalgamation of several stories and books, this 10-minute sequence largely preserved the text of the original book and limited itself from crossing with the other characters. After having a hunch, JoJo would stumble upon a dark room in which a phone would be placed, the cat leaving him. JoJo would pick up the phone, and a voice would sing the beginning of the Lorax. This would take JoJo to the shack of the Onceler. The Onceler would speak to JoJo in a croaky voice, before leaping from his hut and singing his song as choral voices echo behind him, the song being notably darker than the others. Numerous elements of the book appear, that is the Truffula trees, Barbaloots, humming fish, swummy swans and the Lorax himself, gradually disappearing as the song goes on. The song ends with the Onceler back in his hut, giving JoJo the last Truffula seed. The song's final lines, "No matter how small you are now, the future's in your hands," were intended to give JoJo the courage he needs to later save all of Whoville. Recently, as of 2013, MTI has begun offering the sequence as an independent mini-musical, advertising it on the back of Seussical librettos and scripts. It's possible that if the stage rights for both were acquired, one could stage them in the same production as originally intended. Seussical JR removals The entire military subplot was removed to make the story fit to children more, which resulted in the General Genghis Khan Schmidt's character being completely removed. Because of this, the songs The Military, Having a Hunch, and Message from the Front were also removed. JoJo remains a lead, but his role is shifted to an average boy sucked into the vortex in the Cat in the Hat's hat, and feels out of place throughout the rest of the story, thus explaining why he feels different. Also, many songs were shortened or their reprises were cut. For example, How Lucky You Are, the first version is not there, but the reprise is credited as the full song. Also, The People vs. Horton the Elephant is split into 2 parts. All of the Grinch scenes are removed. Due to this removal, The characters of Max the dog and Cindy Lou Who are removed. However, the Grinch still plays a small role in the song Here on Who, having one line. Due to this minimal amount of time, some productions choose to have the Cat in the Hat play the Grinch in this song using a Santa hat and a mask. Awards and nominations. Original Broadway production Original off-Broadway production References. External links, Seussical at the Internet Theatre Database, Seussical at the Internet Broadway Database, Seussical at the Music Theatre International website, Seussical Jr. at the Music Theatre International website, Seussical, Theatre for Young Audiences version at the Music Theatre International website, Seussical audition advice and show information from musicaltheatreaudition.net, New York Times article on the Theatre for Young Audiences version, Seussical the musical lyrics,